Hi, I'm Clark on Temptress. Today we're going to continue our series to find the best inexpensive lithium iron phosphate battery around. Today we're going to look at this Elefast 100 amp hour battery and see how it stands up. As many of you know, I developed this BankManager device. It charges and lets you mix lead and lithium batteries. Pretty neat deal. Look at it in other videos. Well, because of that, people are always asking me, what battery should I buy? So I'm doing this series and we're going to get reasonably priced or what look like good deals on batteries and really tear into them so we can all know more about them. Today we're going to look at this, the Elefast 100 amp hour battery. This is by the same company that did the Fence battery. Fence battery was their very low and cheapest possible offering. This is their more Cadillac offering. It's got some bells and whistles and it's pretty neat, still reasonably priced. Background on that company, they contacted me and I got to know a bit about them. They have been making batteries for quite some time, but without labels, and then selling them to other companies who put stickers on them and then sell the batteries. So when you see a bunch of batteries that look alike, they might have come from this factory. This company is now going to get into marketing them directly and hey, fewer middlemen, right? Let's see how that works out. This battery has a lot more bells and whistles than the last one. Chief among them, I think, is the fact that this has a Bluetooth enabled BMS. It's kind of neat. Honestly, it's the very first time I've ever played with a Bluetooth BMS. As of July 10th, 2023, this battery costs $349 on Amazon. It says it's 22 pounds, 12 inches by 6.5 inches by 8.7 inches. I think the case is a very reasonable size. That's a great thing. For a while there, the cases were so much bigger than the actual batteries inside. And as important as it is to get as much capacity per dollar, in many applications, it's very important to get as much capacity per space that they use up. You know, if you're on a boat in particular or a camper, you only have so much space for batteries. Let's get the battery producers to make the smallest possible batteries that do the job. This battery has a very special feature. It has a Bluetooth enabled BMS. Boils down to it can report to your phone what the heck's going on the inside and give you some control about what's going on the inside. If you had a home-built battery you did yourself with a separate BMS, you're probably going to have the case such that you can get access, get in there with probes. But these, the whole point is, you know, they shouldn't be. They should be kind of protected. Well, with the Bluetooth BMS, we get to have some information. I grabbed the app and put it on my phone, and it was real easy to do. They have QR codes on a little card here, and I just photographed the QR code. I was in, came up. I was quite surprised that it came up with the Play Store. So I kind of feel it's got some filtering for viruses and stuff. Anyway, put it on my phone. It's been on my phone for a few days. Nothing's gone crazy. It lets me see the voltage of all the cells, which is what we're going to do later, you know, when we tear it apart. It lets me turn the battery right off remotely, which is nice. It comes with this manual. It has actually some nice graphs that you might find interesting, but they're kind of the same for all lithium iron phosphate batteries. Might be the better presented ones I've ever seen. And it has your basic information about this battery. What do we have here? Well, it's a 12-volt battery, 100 amp hours. They say minimal capacity, 98 amp hours. That would be probably there when it isn't good state. That's reasonable, you know, 2%. It gives the normal specifications you'd expect for a lithium iron phosphate battery because it's really a function of the chemistry. So if you have never owned a lithium iron phosphate before, this really gives you most of what you need to know. It's going to tell you what temperatures you can operate it at. It's going to tell you, you know, how cold it can be and still safely charge. It refers to the case here as an IP55, which means that basically during normal operation, dust can't get in. I believe that, looking at this thing. And that I believe it's good for jets of water. which is way beyond what you should do with a battery. We're not going to throw these down in the bottom of the ocean after all. It has some nice handles on it. That's kind of handy, folds up nice. Looks like a fine case that I'm about to destroy. So, next step is I tear this case apart so we can get to the internals, and let's give it an electrical evaluation. Well, I got it open. It was a tricky one. This company seems to epoxy their batteries together, so no worries about one of these falling apart in the field. They are tight. Well, this got a little bit exciting, and you don't want exciting when you're around batteries. I was using a 4-pound hammer and a chisel and really going at it, and then all of a sudden, oh shit! In beating on it, I chafed through a wire, and the wire touched one of the terminals inside the battery and got really hot and melted its insulation off. Of course, I didn't know what the heck was going on, so I immediately got it over by the side of the boat so I could throw it in the ocean if necessary, and then evaluated it there. But the heat went away, and I pulled it apart and was able to deal with it. So I've saved it, and now I've got it here. This is a cool battery. I repaired the wire that I screwed up. Like I said, one of the sense wires for one of the cells. So I cut that off and spliced in a nice replacement for it. So it's as good as new now. This is not burned, by the way. If you're seeing this, this is just some silicon from the assembly process. What do I see? Well, I see a battery done right. I see a BMS that I've done some research on, and it looks like if you were going to buy a BMS to put in your own homemade batteries, you know, where you want the best, this would be one of the candidates. This looks like good stuff. This is not a fly-by-night or what was cheap this week. The company told me this is more their Cadillac battery, and I absolutely believe them. Remember, this is like a $350 battery. This might be the most amazing $350 battery out there. We got some cells, of course. We don't have doubles and everything. We've got really good bus bars. I've got a FLIR now, so when we pull 100 amps out of this, we'll see what gets warm and what doesn't get warm. We'll learn a lot. It'll be interesting. But it looks first rate to me. What excites the hell out of me is this. These are real thermal pickups. These aren't switches. They've got a couple of them here. And this means this device gets to know the actual temperature inside the case, not necessarily just, is it too hot, shall I shut down? This gives it the potential to be able to shut off at cold weather. So we're going to do that test. We're going to see if this thing does what it would need to do, like full out. Let me turn around so I can see a little better. It comes with this app, and I've been playing with the app, of course, because how can you not play with something new? This is pretty darn cool. It tells you, of course, the state of charge, and it's pretty high because I put it on the BankManager and charged it to 100%. It tells you the internal voltage of the whole battery, the amps going in and out. Tells you if it's in any kind of a protection mode, which it would do if you overcharged it, or other things that tell it to stop. It seems to have two fields here for charge control and for discharge control, which is encouraging. It's going to count its cycles of charge, which would be nice. You get this information here that all has to do with the individual cells. This one is probably really interesting. It says the difference between the highest and the lowest cell voltage is 0.039 volts. Scroll down here and we get some more stuff. We get to see the temperatures, and if I just grab a hold of one of these probes with my hot hand, we see that number 3 here is going up. So that's number 3. We get to see the individual cell voltages, and they are pretty close, like we see up here. They're 0.039 volts apart. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to use my basically my bench power supply to charge this beyond where the BankManager thinks it should be charged. And while we're doing that, we're going to do another test. I'm going to put one of these probes in some very cold water. I'll put some salt into some ice so that I can get it just below freezing. if all goes well, this thing will shut off. It won't accept a charge anymore. I tell you, for this price, if it does that, this is a gem, and you got to look at it. If you're in a camper or something that can go into a cold place, that is an important feature, and having it in the battery is the right place to be. So I feel like this battery is exciting. Okay, so let's do that. So I've got some ice, and thing about ice is it wants to be 0 Celsius. That's where it will melt at. If you try to raise it above 0 Celsius, it absorbs energy to melt. So this is a really good calibration of 0 Celsius. But I want to go just below it, partly because, well, I don't have the time to wait for this thing to hit exactly 0. So I'm going to put some salt on it. And you put salt on ice, if you've ever made ice cream the old way, you know that will lower the freezing point. So the thing will get colder. Okay, so first thing, I will get my probe here. I will set this thing for the appropriate voltage. I'll hook the probes to the appropriate terminals. I should reach around there, but I can't easily. And these two, trust me, are electrically equivalent to there. They're right on the other ends of these wires. And I will start the charge process. So I'm charging at 3 amps. Let's do this slow so we have some time. And what do we see? Yep, it's charging just a little over 3 amps. The voltage will start crawling up. The temperature is 28.4 degrees. And I'm taking one of these probes now, and I'm going to put it into the ice, on the ice, so that we can see what's going on. And what do we get? Well, that temperature is going down, 11.3, 5.4, 1.4, negative. Just went, and look at that. It gave us an error saying that it's not going to charge, and the charge state went to 0. So it's not taking, and it's not taking current, and according to my device on the wall, it is not taking current. That was one of the probes. Just out of curiosity, I want to see if it'll go off with the other one. So we'll warm it back up. And yes, it is back active, taking power at 3 amps again. So I'll put the other probe into the saltiness. And yep, 14, 7, 2.6, negative. Bang, there we go, same thing. So yes, this battery has cold weather protection and it checks out. That's pretty cool. I don't know if you really need a BMS that talks Bluetooth. It's kind of fun. And if you had one, you really wouldn't have to open the case to know what's going on in the cells. In fact, I'm going to use mostly this app because it can check the voltage of all the cells individually and kind of makes it easier for me than running my little probe around. Do you need it or not? I don't know, but having the good BMS that does the other tricks is well worth it, like that cold weather. So I guess the next thing to do is we continue to charge it and see when it shuts off. We're letting it charge. This is obviously going to take a while. We're charging a battery. So I've sped up the film. I crank up the amps coming out of the boat to just a little over 5, as much as I can push, and up comes the voltage. I'm taking a look at the individual cells. They're still really close. They currently are 0.05 volts. Well, that'll be changing as things go. But I think anything less than 0.1 is perfectly acceptable. I see that it's turned its cell balancer on. You can see where it says balance on. That means that it's taking the high cell and actually throwing a resistor across it inside the board to take power away from that cell, to get them all more even. This happens when you get up into these high voltages. This is the device attempting to do a high balance, and looks like succeeding at it. If you ever got wildly out of balance, you would use very low amps to hold the battery up to high voltage, like above 14, maybe 14.2 up in there, for an extended period of time. Not great for the battery. It's beyond where the BankManager will take things, but that's how its internal balancer can do its job. It does take a while. Something you might do once a year or so, but if you have this BMS, you can see the individual cells, so you would be able to tell when it's necessary or wanted. The BankManager has a way of doing that where you don't charge to a percentage, but you actually charge to a voltage, and that's there for a couple reasons, and one is so you can do a balance without it fighting you, saying, no, 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 don't go any higher. When you use a BankManager to run your charge cycle, you get a good full charge without damage, and part of that is the cells never get up into that hockey stick where the voltage starts skying up, which is where you even know you're out of balance. So likely if you use my approach, you just will never know if your cells are out of balance. It doesn't matter unless they're grossly out of balance. Okay, we're up to 14.58 and going up. Usually these things shut off at around 14.6. But this one probably is going to go higher because I see one of the cells is already above 3.65, which is kind of where I like to see the cutoff. So, well, let's let it go. Let's see how high it goes before this BMS decides to shut off these cells. I personally like, I understand I went to the manufacturer of the BMS directly and looked at their site, and it looks like there's other apps you can get that will reprogram the BMS to do things. So without opening the case, you could actually change the maximum voltage number per cell. You could make all these changes yourself if you wanted to. What are we up to? 14.62 and rising. $3,749. All right, it shut off. Okay, it shut off at a total voltage of 14.93 volts, and one cell got up to 3.744 according to this meter. Let's check with the fluke. That is cell number 2. So we get kind of a little independent voltage check here. And what's the fluke say? 3.719. So the fluke is saying that actually just a little bit lower than the app is. So the app's being kind of conservative on its readings, not necessarily on its settings. Well, if it were my battery, I might lower it, but if it was my battery, I'd be charging with the BankManager and you'd never get up to here, so it doesn't really matter. Smoke didn't come out, the cell didn't explode, nothing's warm. Probably occasionally this wouldn't destroy anything. So let's move on. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do, this battery is now fully charged. We're going to take this back to what I call the sauna room, the tool room, hook it directly to my inverter, and using a heat gun, we're going to pull some real power out of it. It's rated for 100 amps, so we're going to pull 100 amps for a period of time. We're going to take a look at it with an infrared camera and see if it's getting hot anywhere. And as an aside, I'm thanking viewers because regular viewers know that I built an air conditioner. And somebody kind of joked, hey, as the high current test, you ought to run the air conditioner. Well, first off, I'm a little proud that's not a high current test. My air conditioner runs at very low power. But it reminded me, that room back there is hot. There's not a lot of airflow in it. If you look at the other videos, I am suffering back there with the heat gun and everything. Well, it opens right into the room with the air conditioner. So I'm just going to turn the air conditioner on, make it all cool, and do the project under air conditioning. So we're going to do that now. Okay, so we've got the battery installed to our 3 kilowatt inverter. This meter is telling us the amps it's drawing, and the inverter just in standby is drawing amp and a half or so. The battery is at 13.24 volts, and I have this heat gun, and I can adjust it. So I'm going to adjust it so it draws 100 amps out of the battery, and I'm going to shove it out the window a little bit. So here we go. We're drawing 104 amps. That's good. The voltage is really only going down to 12.7. That's not bad. Now, I'm going to use this fancy new camera once I move my finger out of the way and take a look at it. Wires are getting warm, but I can't feel anything with my hands. Not really an issue. Oh, it's telling us the wires are 110 degrees Fahrenheit and everything else is just cool as a cucumber. We're drawing just a little over spec. So we're gonna run this for a while. Let's see if this gets hot. But geez, right now it's just performing like I would want it to. This says 120 degrees on the wire, but I can't even feel it like at all. It's got nice silicon wire. Still at 12.6. Perfectly reasonable voltage considering, you know, what it's doing. I'll just let this run for a bit and we'll get back at it. But geez, this battery's doing what I would want it to do. Particularly looking at the buses here, the bars across, they are absolutely ambient. Let me look at, there's my hand. My hand is way warmer than the batteries actually are. Only thing that's getting warm at all are these wires. And this thing's auto ranging, so it's always going to make the hottest thing look like hell. But, well, as you can see, they're not that hot. Really not that hot at all. This one you can't judge it on. This wire going up and down is my wire. Yep. Actually, I'm very surprised that it's showing the temperature of 130 because, well, something just happened. It shut down. I'm going to put my phone back into the app and ask what happened. That's disappointing. Find the app. It says that it has disconnected. Doesn't say why. Okay, got the test running again. Nothing is hot, and it shut off. And then it occurred to me why. It's rated for 100 amps. I drew 105. It's a proper digital device. It's actually watching what's happening. It's watching the actual amp flow. It's not saying, I'll run it until it gets hot and whatever, like the cheaper ones do. So I broke the rules, so it shut down. Now I've turned it down to 88 amps. That's not because I want to go well below the 100. It's just because I don't have any way of fine tuning. That heat gun isn't that adjustable. But we're going to let it run for quite a while, again, looking for heat. I was concerned. I thought it was going to get a big old fail. But, you know, a proper BMS would have a shunt in it that tells it exactly how much power it's using. And it's digital, so it does exactly what's told. And it probably has a certain amount of time that it's allowed to go over the 100 amp number, and then it shuts down. And we use that time up. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And actually, it was almost exactly 5 minutes from when I turned it on at the over 100 amps. So probably you can go over 100 amps for no more than 5 minutes. Probably other limits like, you know, 150 amps give you 1 minute. I don't know what it would be. But I think that's what happened. So let's go back to the FLIR. It's been 6 or 7 minutes according to the timer here. And let's take a look at the temperatures. Same thing. Hottest thing is the wires, and they're not that terribly hot. My wires going up to the device are much hotter than the, or just as hot as the wires in the device. The warmer area here where I'm putting my hand, I still can't really feel any heat coming out of it, but it's showing extra hot because it's where the two cross. No, I think this is just a battery doing what a battery needs to do. Let's give it some more time and see if anything goes south, but it's looking good. Looking at the app here, I find that it sees 92 amps going out, which is pretty much what that sees. This is probably more accurate because of the type of shunt it uses. 91.2, up and down because that's how this load goes, which is 1,132 watts at this voltage. Batteries voltages are the cell voltages are very much together. The total difference between the highest and the lowest is 0.04 volts. That's very nice. The internal temperature sensor is 39.9. Yeah, the MOSFET, in fact, it just hit 40 this second. MOS, that would be the MOSFET temperature. That's not even a problem. As you can see from the camera, we can't see any heat coming out of the heat sink yet. Okay, it's been 10 minutes now. Nothing's getting warm. Everything's functioning. Voltage is pretty steady. I'll let it go a little longer because it's just no vent here. This could do this all day as far as I can tell. Of course, it can only do it for about an hour because that's how much power it has. But this is some heavy lifting. I think this battery does what a battery should do. I can't believe the price. What it's doing for this price is pretty amazing. Well, it's been running for 15 minutes. I'm calling it because, hell, I got to put all this power back in before the next test. The next test will be, I'm going to charge it up using the BankManager. So charging it up this time to respectable full, not like crazy high voltage hurt the battery full. And then we're going to do our normal slow cycle and find out how many amp hours are really in this battery and available to us. I'm just tearing it down now, and I noticed that the main lugs where you would connect your own wires to the battery, they're hot. They're quite warm, and even though it's been sitting for a while, they're still like 140, 150 degrees. That's on me. I didn't tighten them down enough, but that's for all of us. If you don't make good electrical connections, you have a resistor. I created a resistor. We put 100 amps through the resistor, so that was getting hot. Now, copper being copper, that heat was going out the wires because, you know, copper conducts heat real well. So I think most of the heat we saw in the internal wires was totally on me because I didn't hook it up right. This is not actually your normal battery hookup, of course. You'll have a nice case and it'll be easier for you to do it right. I just didn't take the wrench to it hard enough. So I think it would have done better, but even as it did, it's good battery. Well, we've jumped ahead a bit. I've been running this discharge test, but let me tell you what I've done. I used a BankManager to charge the battery. I always use the BankManager to charge the batteries for these tests because it charges without overcharging, you know, right to where the hockey stick curve starts happening, where damage can happen to the battery, and that gives us a very consistent spot to charge down from. You could probably get a few more amp hours into the battery, but at the expense of battery life, so we're not going to test that way. I'm running the test now. It's been running for just a little over 10 hours at 10 amps, discharging. I'm up to 101 amp hours and down to 10.8 volts. So it's going to take a little longer. I don't know when this BMS is going to shut off. There can be anywhere from 10 to 8 volts. And I think I'll take a pause here and get back to you when it actually goes click.
Action.
Okay, that was it. Just went click. 101 point, let's see, I should be able to calculate this out because I'm going at 10 amps, so 6, 12, so I'd say it was 101 and about 2/3 amp hour, not that that matters that much. Anything close to 100 should be a win, and this is just a little high of 100, so that's good. The other thing of interest is the cell voltage. One cell got to 2.4 volts, you know, first, as it always will. The voltage separation did spread out towards the end to almost, 0.48 volts, but that's fully expected at the bottom, and that's kind of what you want. No set of cells are identical. They're not all going to hit the finish line at the same time, But since you use your batteries from full down to say 50% more often than from 50% down to empty, you want to do what's called top balancing. Balancing them so they're all even when they're up at the top. And as they race down using up power and their voltage drops, it doesn't matter if they spread out towards the bottom. Now, something I've noticed about this, and this is mostly because I get to see so much more information with the app and the Bluetooth, is I'm kind of overanalyzing. I think everybody that gets a Bluetooth battery will end up overanalyzing. Everything I'm saying here is so unimportant. The battery puts out power with or without this. But what I've noticed is this thing has a balancer. It's a simple resistive balancer, but when the battery cells get out of balance, it takes the high one and kind of brings it down by putting a load on it. Well, it did the balancing at the top, but it didn't do the balancing at the bottom. And that's so important. Most of these that I've run across, they try to balance the top and they kind of get it sort of right, and then you discharge and they try to balance at the bottom and they kind of undo their own work. One side should be the priority, the other side should be ignored. And this BMS does that. So for the discharge, the capacity test, good win. Okay, let's put this on the leaderboard now, go through its features and see how it stacks up with what we've done so far. Capacity, great. It's a little bit more than we're buying, a little more than 100. Can't ask more than that. Cells, I'm going to give it a great. These cells came to me in really good balance, and they performed as I would expect them to electrically. Overall build quality, I give it an excellent. It's got that real good BMS that really is the personality of the whole battery. The cables are often 7 gauge for a battery this size. I follow a reference that these are 6, which is just a little bit bigger. And I believe that because, you know, they feel like 6 to me, but I can't tell the difference between 6 and 7. And even with all the good build quality stuff in it, this is the lightest battery that we've looked at so far, 22 pounds. I think the case deserves an excellent simply because it was virtually impossible to get apart. It fought me harder than any other one. I think seriously I might use saws on all of them now, not trying to recover the case afterwards because, well, it got dangerous. I shorted out that wire. All on me, don't hit your batteries with a 4-pound persuader. Company, same company with the Fence battery, still a pleasure to work with. I'll give them an excellent still. Cost to value, this is the first one I'm going to give an excellent to. It's got a BMS, it's got cold weather shutdown of the charge. Everything's working as one would expect it to, and the price is pretty fantastic. Speaking of the price, I would check right now. If you're on the cusp of wanting a battery, I just checked just before I filmed this section, and for some reason Amazon's giving me $50 off this battery. We checked with another account and we were being offered $20 off. So there's some kind of coupon going on like right now. You might want to check that. As you know, I'm a proponent of making the cases as small as possible, and this is pretty tight. It's probably not as small as it absolutely could be, but it's pretty tight. On our chart, if you go to the leaderboard thing, go down the description, follow the link. We now have cost per watt, as you would expect, but also watts per volume. And that gives you an idea of how compressed it is. It basically boils down to how much foam are you being asked to store in your battery compartment. So if you're interested in one of these batteries, go to my leader table of all the batteries I review. You'll find that down in the description. And in that table, there'll be a link to the best way to buy it that'll get you the best price. Right now, this battery is at the top of the heap. If I was to buy a battery today, it would likely be this one. And if I needed a battery for a cabin in a cold place or some kind of a vehicle that could drive to a cold place or be stored, this has a lot to be said for it. This ability to shut down its charge when things get cold is a feature I haven't found in a battery anywhere near this price point. Thanks for watching the video. If you like it, give us the thumbs up, all that stuff, share it with friends. That helps us immeasurably. And more are coming, so if you like this, subscribe. Bye from Temptress.